Hi, my name is Brenda Titus. I'm a professional hypnotist in Orange County, California. For information about myself and my program, including in-person sessions, please go to my website, ochypnotherapy.com. So welcome to this week's Thoughts from the Hypnosis Office. And the goal of Thoughts from the Hypnosis Office is to share different tidbits that have come up through my work with my clients to help you kind of understand yourself a little bit better. And we are doing a bit of a seasonal approach this week, or actually the last few weeks we've been talking about fear. And today we are really talking about a very particular element of the Halloween season. Although you could watch this episode anytime you come across it, because I think that it really resonates and something that I've really learned here in the office with several clients. So I wanted to call this week's episode Being the Hero in Your Own Horror Story, and especially really inspired by some things that are the more extreme types of things. So here where I live in Orange County, we have, Knott's Berry Farm has done some sort of haunted, scary event for many, many years, actually since I was a child. Same with Universal Studios. A lot of our neighbors throughout, the neighborhood, they'll do their own, Halloween scary kind of thing. And I really have learned a lot through the years about fear and how it's a primary reason that people come to see me, regardless of what the particular fear is. There is something that is creating fear in my clients, and so we're working on that. And I saw a documentary a couple of years ago, and the documentary was really about a very particular extreme extreme haunt is what they call them. It was like a haunted house kind of a thing, but it was a very extreme, putting people in really uncomfortable situations. And that documentary is no longer available, but I really learned a lot from it, and it helped me here in working with my clients. And so I wanted to share a little bit of some of the ideas that had come up and some of the things that I've learned from my clients over the years about especially participating in deliberately going out into these scary events or putting themselves in such uncomfortable situations. And a lot of it really comes down to that they feel like they want to show themselves that they can do it, so that they can really feel that fear of a very scary, intimidating, especially in the extreme haunts, because sometimes they can be very violent, or they're putting people in really claustrophobic situations, or putting them through their worst fear kinds of things. And that feeling of fear is incredibly intense. And so there are many people that I've heard in different interviews, or even that I've talked to here in the hypnosis office, that have said, there's something about really deliberately putting yourself in that deep fear, scary position, and going for it and doing it anyway. And I've actually, beyond the horror part, I've experienced that with people who feel that way about skydiving, bungee jumping, other really intense kinds of things. It's that idea of really experiencing those intense feelings, and especially in a pretty extreme environment, that's still reasonably is controlled, and so it actually can help a person feel more brave by experiencing that. And so they feel more brave, more strong, more improved confidence because of having gone through an experience that was so intense, and making it to the other side. So that's actually a pretty neat kind of a thing. Now, this next part is kind of tricky, so hopefully this makes sense. So there are some people who, through their lifetime, have been exposed to such extreme things in life, extreme, intense feelings and experiences. And I'm talking about like trauma survivors, and vets. Actually, on this documentary, there was a vet who had really, seen war, and so the ways that he explained this next part, it's that intensity of the feeling, that it's almost like they've seen so much in life that their feelings are very dulled, or perhaps they actually take medication for anxiety, and so then their feelings are dulled, and so they sometimes like to or put themselves into these kinds of situations like the extreme haunts, or like I said, the bungee jumping and the skydiving, so that they can feel those feelings, because it's almost like they feel so dulled that then they really enjoy the extreme feeling of those extreme situations. So that's kind of an interesting way of thinking about it. And even people without having real extreme trauma, or or like a vet that had been in war, there are many people that I've worked with who have said, exposing themselves to the uncomfortable feeling of fear, it actually can kind of, it's almost like this re-regulating themselves, where it's like, oh, that's what fear is supposed to feel like. And so being able to understand the difference, between like real fear, and then what maybe they had called fear through their anxiety. And so it kind of helps the body and the mind kind of re-regulate around the purpose of that feeling, and so that then it doesn't have to be so big when things are not so high stakes. It's really interesting, kinds of ways of thinking about, like I said, that feeling the fear, and seeing that, like, oh, it's going to be okay. I survived, because fear in the end is a really important feeling. When we have fear, when it's when it's a real danger, that's like warning, we got to listen to it. And so, so sometimes, it helps in those situations for people who've really had kind of like the false alarm go off for so long because of particular types of anxiety that weren't necessarily, correct sources of anxiety. Then it helps people actually then understand what the real feeling of fear is, so that, in the future, then when they deal with a real fear, something real that legitimate that's going on, they can listen to it and respond accordingly. So kind of some interesting ways of thinking about, like I said, haunted, extreme haunts, haunted houses, going out and doing extreme things, especially during, this, the spooky season. But also, like I said, actually, thinking as well about when we go and we do things, people, not me, the roller coasters, the skydiving and bungee jumping, it kind of is that similar thing. So you might, kind of think about that as well. But either way, since this is the Halloween season, at least that I'm recording this and sharing it the first time, I want to encourage you. I think this is kind of, a neat way to think about it. Either way, if you're experiencing something that's scary, especially if it's something that, can help you grow, that's really where I want you to think about, acknowledging, feel the fear, and walk through it anyway. It's going to be okay. And maybe even get out there and be the hero in your own horror story, or be the hero, and be the hero anyway. But if you feel like going out and thinking about that through the Halloween season, that's a fun way to think about as you're seeing the different things out there. And I hope that you have a wonderful time thinking about it that way. And so with that, I wish you a wonderful week. Thanks for joining me for Thoughts from the Hypnosis Office.